Welcome to Mystic Realms Recap. Links are in the description below. Please show some love of the author and me. On to the show.
With Serendu settled on the second floor of the Abyss world, this dark conferring god finally ended. The result? With the exception of Sarah, who was successfully conferred god under the protection of Sumu, the remaining 20 or so complete demigods of the Dark Camp, except for 4 or 5 demigods who escaped successfully after the ceremony of conferring the gods failed, the rest all of them fell under the sniping of the Bright Camp. Hidden for countless years. It is also developed secretly for countless years. Because the strength of the Dark Camp of the collective conferred gods plummeted. But Sarine has been successfully conferred a god, and based on the 2 powerful priesthoods of Undead and Darkness, he has condensed his own godhead and became the true god in charge of Undead and Darkness. From this aspect, the dark faction that has not appeared for tens of thousands of years can be regarded as a surge in strength. The end of the dark conferring of gods, the next is the harvest. Serendu, the true dark god who has the potential to climb to the realm of the king of gods, became his subordinate, which was the biggest gain that Sumu obtained in this dark god. As long as he stabilizes his godhead and maintains enough faith, Saline can immediately become the number 1 general under his command. In the age when the gods have not awakened, such a dark true god can be said to be enough to sweep all the worlds. Second, even Sarine integrated his kingdom of God into the Abyss world, bringing Sumu the second layer of the Abyss world and 2 additional source powers. Although this kind of 60-80 extra harvest cannot directly improve Sumu's strength or level of the Abyss world, it allows Sumu to see the future development direction of the Abyss world. Its significance, quite significant. Finally, there is the divine. Hundreds of corpses of angels and demigods, the divinity contained in them. I am afraid there are thousands of points. Such a huge amount of divinity is enough for Sumu to pile up the divinity of himself and the many Abyss Lords under his command. Given enough time to digest, he and the Abyss Lords under his command can all rely on devouring divinity to push themselves to the realm of perfect demigods. This kind of harvest is absolutely unimaginable in peaceful times. It can be said, once the darkness conferred God, whether it was the Dark Camp or the Light Camp, all suffered heavy losses. Only Sumu's Abyss Camp made a lot of money. Of course, there are also disadvantages. With this appearance, Sumu's identity as the Abyss Devil may not be able to be concealed. The Abyss Camp will also appear in the vision of the Light Camp as an independent force no less than the Dark Camp. Come to think of it, when the gods wake up, not only the Dark Camp will usher in the first round of blows from the gods, but the Abyss Camp that already has 2 true god-level combat power on the bright side, also under pressure from the gods. The premise is, they can find the Abyss world. At the same time, with the end of the Dark God, it means that the game world has truly entered the late stage. Because this moment is only 1 year before the gods wake up from their slumber. A year later, the gods awoke. Not only the Dark Camp and Abyss Camp in the game world will receive the first round of blows from the gods, but also the real world, with memories of past lives. However, Sumu clearly knew that the first time he woke up from his deep sleep, the Light Camp headed by the God of Light tore the barrier between the game world and the real world and acted in the light of the dark things for the real world. Brought destruction. Past life. Sumu is pure human. Even after he became a legendary swordsman in the game world, he never had faith in the gods. He naturally holds a hatred of the gods who have destroyed the real world and destroyed their own homeland. This life, he is an Abyss Devil transformed from a skeleton undead, and he is the master of the Abyss world. Even if I don't consider my previous life, I don't consider my emotions when I was a human, just from the development of the Abyss world and the potential represented by the countless human beings. He will also intervene when the gods come to reality. At this time, he already had this strength and confidence. 1 year is enough for him to further improve his strength. At that time, the combat power he can show is not only the middle god, but the upper god and even the combat power of a higher level. Such strength may not be enough to face the God King. 18. It is enough to face any opponent under the King of God. As for the God King, combining past life experiences and information from this life, Sumu knew. Of course, at the first moment of awakening, the bright camp headed by the God of Light tore apart the barriers between the game world and the real world, allowing the gods to come to reality. 1. Among these descending gods, there is absolutely no God King. After a long period of sleep, even if there are petitioners in their own kingdom, the gods seriously lack the power of belief and divine power, especially the King of Gods. Harvest the power of belief, transform divine power, replenish your divine power reserve. These are the things that the God Kings first consider. And now, it's time for Sumu to take advantage of it. Abyss Hall. On the throne, Sumu sat there alone. Sarah Indu has already retreated, and she can only leave the customs after she has completely stabilized her godhead in the kingdom of God. Olivia, after witnessing the consecration of Sarah Indu, seemed to be stimulated and began to retreat. Presumably after she left the customs, she had already entered the level of a consummate demigod. The Abyss Lords such as Agnes, Augustine, Nefarian, Rhoda Monroe, and Corolla were even more stimulated. They deeply felt that their strength was insufficient. God of War. Hundreds of demigods have fallen, and many of them are middle demigods, upper demigods, and even those who are at the level of perfect demigods. This intense war deeply stimulated these Abyss Lords, making them eager to improve their strength. When players provide the experience points they need to upgrade their level, and Sumu provides the divinity they need to improve their realm, the only thing they need to do is to try to swallow the divinity and refine the divinity. Attack the median demigod, the upper demigod, and even the consummation demigod at the fastest speed. In this way, only then can they hope to show up in the future battle of the gods and truly help their lord. Of course, there are exceptions. When the other Abyss Lords entered the state of retreat, only Argus, the Lich King, remained. It's not that Argus doesn't want to improve his strength, but because the huge Abyss world needs to be taken care of. Argus had no interest in war, and Sumu also granted Argus no participation in any war. In this way, when other Abyss Lords are working hard to improve their strength, the Lich King, who was appointed by Sumu as the chief steward, is naturally responsible for managing the Abyss world and managing the many Abyss races and players of the Abyss camp. 1 year. Sitting on the throne of the Abyss Hall, Sumu was thinking about the development direction of the Abyss camp in the next year. First, the Abyss world. The Abyss world's devouring of other main material worlds will continue. With Sarine becoming one of his subordinates, the spatial coordinates of the many main material worlds that he has mastered can also be used as the next target for the Abyss world to swallow. The Abyss world, after all, is Sumu's strongest trump card so far, and the growth of the Abyss world cannot stop at all. In addition, the day of Olivia's consecration is not far away. But, with Sarah's lessons learned from being a god, no one dared to snipe Olivia's consecration ceremony under the protection of Sumu. It is only a matter of time before this crow who sues for death becomes a true god. When Olivia becomes a true god and integrates her kingdom into the Abyss world, the number of layers in the Abyss world will change from 2 layers to 3 layers, and the origin of the Abyss world will increase accordingly. Second, Sumu himself. Level and realm. 1 year may not be enough for Sumu to raise his level to the full level of 100, and it may not necessarily allow his divinity to reach the limit of 100 points, forming his own divinity shield of 0. But Sumu estimates that in this year's time, it is still very possible to make oneself a high-ranking demigod or a consummate demigod. The improvement of the strength and realm of the main body will directly drive the improvement of the combat power of the skeleton god of war form. He will not ignore this improvement. At the same time, when improving his level and realm, he can also harvest free points by the way and upgrade his series of skills to the subdivine level, so as to enhance his strength. Third, players from the Abyss camp. Today, among the more than 6 million players in the Abyss camp under his command, the number of players who have entered the legendary rank has exceeded 100. The number of players stuck at the epic peak is thousands. Although, from the point of view of combat power, when the battle between the gods and the gods is about to be faced, the players of the more than 100 legendary ranks can play very little role. However, no one can ignore the more than 6 million players who have the potential to break through to the legendary rank. Besides, the greatest significance of these players to the Abyss Camp is not their combat power, but their identities as tool people and non-vegetables. With more than 6 million players from the Abyss Camp, Sumu can arbitrarily harvest experience points in the form of a skill library, not only to quickly improve his own level, but also to quickly improve the level of the many Abyss Lords under his command. It can be said, compared with other camps, these players who can provide massive experience points are the biggest plugins of the Abyss Camp. It can make the Lords of the Abyss World grow up at the fastest speed. The Abyss World needs to constantly devour the main material worlds one by one. Sumu also urgently needs to expand the number of players in the Abyss Camp, so that his subordinates have more tool people and more non-vegetables. And these 2 points do not conflict. To know. According to the experience of Sumu's previous life, at this point in time, players who have stepped into the legendary rank have begun to repair the realm teleportation array in their birth world. Once they repair the realm teleportation array, they can step into the high-level world from the low-level world that serves as the player server. When players are in low-level worlds, their world coordinates are hidden. It's Serindu. They have never mastered any low-energy level main material world that has players descended. This is the protection of the game rules for the player. It allows players to grow on their own in the low-level worlds where the world coordinates are hidden, without being influenced and controlled by the Sanctuary, Half, 5.5 gods, or even higher-level existences. If it wasn't for Sumu's rebirth, he appeared in a main material world with players coming. I'm afraid it would be difficult for him to come into contact with these special existences. The protection of the rules of the game is naturally difficult to cross. But if players repair the boundary teleportation array and actively break into the high-level world from the low-level worlds, they will not be within the scope of this protection. Not just them. The low-level world connected by the boundary teleportation array will also be released from the protection state. In this way, as long as you capture a high-level world with players appearing, Sumu can take advantage of the opportunity to bring the low-level world represented by this high-level world, that is, players in an entire server continent, into the Abyss Camp. In a server continent, there are at least millions of players, and there may be tens of millions of players. Just capture a server continent. The number of players in the Abyss Camp may double. If you capture a few more server continents, not only the level of the Abyss World will be quickly improved, but even the army of players under Sumu will skyrocket. Massacre? Do not. The attitude of the gods to the player is a total waste. It is the best way for these players to pull these special existences with infinite potential into their own camp and become a non-cooked army under their command. A month later, Sarah has successfully stabilized her own divine personality and divine kingdom, and has also adapted to the unique earthly divine kingdom that is fused with her own divine kingdom in the second layer Abyss World. Appeared in front of Sumu. At this time, Sarine appeared in the form of a human youth. The black flame-like hair, the handsome face, and the slender divine body were already shrouded in a layer of black armor outside the divine body. This is what Serindu looks like in the first place. Of course, because of the 4-in-1 ultimate conferring gods, when Saline was successfully conferred gods, the fire of wisdom, mountain giants, dark titans, and evil angels did not disappear completely, but were integrated into Saline, in the body of both. As long as he wanted to, Sarine could appear in the image of one of the 4 divisions at any time, and show the characteristics of that division. For example, when he appears in the form of a mountain giant, Sarah Indu's physique will reach the limit, and his defense will soar to the peak of the lower gods. Even the existence of the middle gods, it is difficult to break through its defense easily. When appearing in the form of a dark titan, Sarah Indu's power will reach its limit, allowing him to have a terrifying physical attack power that is close to the peak of the lower gods, etc. The body of Sarah Indu is the most balanced form, and also the form with the strongest comprehensive strength. Saline appeared and answered 2 questions for Sumu. The first one is the Chaos Clan, the Demon Clan. After the battle of conferred gods was over, The remaining less than 50 demons were dragged into the Abyss world by Su Mu and temporarily survived in this vast world. How to deal with these demon clans, Su Mu still has to consider Serindu's opinions. After all, the existences in these myths were summoned by Sarine, and only Sarine knew them best. Subsequently, under Serindu's explanation, Su Mu finally understood the origin of the Chaos family. The existence time of the Chaos family is earlier than the birth time of the second sun and human beings, and it can be traced back to the ancient times when the ancient gods created the world. The source of the Chaos family is actually the eldest sun race. When the first war broke out within the eldest sun race, and a lot of negative emotions and chaotic powers that were not controlled by the ancient gods were bred in the war, the ancient gods created a vast new world, which has been completely chaotic. The eldest sun races infested with power plunged into that world and sealed it up. These eldest races of chaotic forces, but the original demons. Of course, it's not that simple. Just as the ancient gods represent the birth of the world, the laws, the rules, and all hope and beauty, the chaotic power represents the end of the world, chaos, disorder, all evil, and tyranny. In theory, that chaotic power was born with the ancient gods and was at the same level as the ancient gods. Even the ancient gods who represent the creation of the world can only seal it, not destroy it. This kind of power, called chaos by the ancient gods, represents the end of all worlds and the unification of chaos. After all the eldest sun races that were contaminated with chaos were sealed into that world, the power of chaos infected the whole world and formed the plane of chaos. In this process, the collective consciousness of chaos was born. It is similar to the instinct of the world, but it is higher than the instinct of the world. Under the control of chaos, the eldest sun races who were sealed into the chaos plane kept multiplying and fighting. In the long period of hundreds of thousands of years, each demon clan gradually formed. By this time, the demon clans have lost the slightest connection with the original eldest sun race. They are a whole new species. They come from chaos and represent chaos, distortion, and disorder. They will eventually return to chaos. If there is no player and no Su Mu, the chaos plane is the ultimate boss of this world according to the normal development. The seal of the ancient gods is unbreakable, but will eventually weaken with the passage of time. Maybe tens of thousands of years later, or maybe hundreds of thousands of years later. When the seals of the ancient gods are weakened to a certain extent, those sealed demon clans will swarm out, bringing chaos, distortion, and disorder to the whole world. Let chaos take over the world. Let the world come to an end. The strength of the chaos plane is no less than the strength of the bright camp, and even wins. According to normal development, this world has two endings. First, when the seal is broken and chaos strikes, the gods of the game world are completely unable to resist the attack of the demons, allowing chaos to occupy the entire world, bringing the whole world to an end and chaos uniting. Second, the power of the gods in the game world surpassed the chaos plane, defeated the demon clan, and even destroyed the chaos plane. Makes this power equal to the ancient gods disappear, and then reborn, starting a new reincarnation. Chaos cannot be destroyed. Or, to end all worlds and return to nothingness is the only way to completely eliminate chaos. The opposition between the light camp and the dark camp is only the opposition within the world. Light and darkness are just two sides of the world. And the opposition between chaos and the world is far higher than the opposition between light and darkness. It is the opposition between nothingness and existence. Darkness is only a part of existence. Chaos family, demon clan. Without the help of the outside world, it would take tens of thousands of years, hundreds of thousands of years for the demon clan to break through the seal left by the ancient gods. But when Saline was blinded by hatred, through countless years of exploration and research, when a group of demons was summoned from the chaos plane by summoning, it was equivalent to taking the initiative to open a small hole in the seal of the ancient gods. The embankment of 1,000 miles collapses in the ant's nest. The existence of this small hole may shorten the time for the demon clan to escape the seal infinitely. It may be thousands of years or hundreds of years, and those chaos demons that represent the end of the world will escape from their cages and come to the world. The power of the gods comes from laws and rules. Its source is the ancient gods. The power of the devil comes from chaos. They also have boundaries. The demons of the demigod level are just big demons, the leaders of evil 680 demons. Demons at the level of true gods are demon lords. And in the chaos plane, there are also demon monarchs who are comparable to god kings. This is a secret. It is a reality that the game world will inevitably encounter in the future. Perhaps, right now, those summoned demons couldn't see anything. Apart from being more tyrannical and belligerent, they don't seem to be much different from the demigods of the dark side. But once the seal is completely broken, once the power of chaos extends from the chaos plane and spreads to the whole world, these demons will turn into chaos, distortion, and disorder in the first time, destroying all existence. For this, Sumu was not worried. Not to mention that it takes at least hundreds or even thousands of years for the Chaos family to break the seal. With this time, his strength has long since grown to what extent? Even in essence, the power of erosion, the endless abyss. The meaning represented by these two words, I am afraid that it is not worse than the Chaos demon at all, right? Besides, an abyss without demons is an incomplete abyss. After learning about the existence of Chaos Plane and Chaos Demons, Mu not only was not afraid, but eagerly wanted to erode and enslave these powerful Chaos Demons together. Chaos cannot be destroyed, but it can be controlled. If the Chaos Plane and all the Chaos Demons become part of the Endless Abyss, the so-called ending of the world is bound to come to an end. Naturally, he has the final say. There is no need to worry about the existence of the Chaos Demon in the Chaos Plane. On the contrary, now that Sarine has mastered the summoning method of Chaos Demons, Sumu also wants to use this method to summon more demons from the clan to study and expand the types of Abyss species. Of course, this is all for later. Sumu doesn't have the time to dedicate himself to the Chaos Plane and Chaos Demons, at least until the big event of the awakening of the gods and the destruction of reality a year later is resolved. Sumu's second doubt solved by Sarah's exit. But the ultimate gods. The ultimate god. The word came from the mouth of the holy angel Michel. The 4-in-1 way of conferring the gods of Sarah Indu is a test of the ultimate conferring gods. The so-called ultimate conferring of gods means that after raising all four-dimensional attributes of oneself to the limit, the ceremony of conferring gods begins. Property limit. When his last occupation template, the legendary occupation template Undead Tyrant, was fused, Sumu knew the limit value of four-dimensional attributes. 1,000,000 points. No matter who it is, no matter what kind of existence, the limit value of its four-dimensional attributes is all 1,000,000 points. The limit attribute of 1,000,000 points means that a creature or undead will get a four-dimensional attribute bonus, such as Sumu at level 1, which are all 10,000 occupation templates or attribute templates, and wait until his level is raised to the full level of level 100. Only then can you have a four-dimensional attribute of 1,000,000 points. This, impossible to appear at all. It is a legendary dragon with the best aptitude and greatest potential. When his attribute template reaches the legendary rank, the four-dimensional attribute bonus brought by each level up will only be more than 5,000 points. And, in the process of growth, a legendary dragon also has to go through various ranks such as basic, advanced, elite, warrior, and lord. This leads to a legendary dragon whose level reaches the full level of 100. Its four-dimensional attributes may not even be able to reach 500,000 points, let alone 1,000,000 points, unless it's a god. When a person becomes a god at level 1, it is possible to have a four-dimensional attribute with a limit of 1,000,000 points when his level reaches level 100. Only, the promotion of rank is itself a part of the road to conferring gods. As the level increases, the rank of a living or undead will increase. How can a level 1 god exist like this? So, this is a paradox. The so-called ultimate conferring of gods by Sarah Indu is to improve his four-dimensional attributes as much as possible before initiating the ceremony of conferring gods. Born from the eldest sun race, and is the prince of the eldest sun race. The four-dimensional attributes that Sarine can get by each level has almost reached a certain upper limit, but this is still far from the theoretical limit of conferring gods. So, it was only after Sarah that she came up with the 4-in-1 way of conferring gods. Divide his own body into 4 parts and integrate them into the 4 most single living races, refining them into their own clones. When you open the conferred gods, then smelt the avatars and reunite them, so as to maximize your 4-dimensional attributes. Titans, power. Evil angel, agility. Mountain giant, physique.
Soulfire, spirit.
Even in this unheard and unprecedented way to improve the 4-dimensional attributes, the attribute limit that Saline has reached is not 1 million points, but 900,000 points. It is precisely because of these 900,000 single points that the mountain giants have the perverted defensive power, the dark titans have the invincible power, the evil angels have the perfect demigod, but they can't react. The speed. Let wisdom have unparalleled wisdom and spiritual power. This is just before the gods. After conferring gods, the biggest benefit brought by this extreme conferring god is that it far exceeds the growth rate of other true gods. Generally speaking, the growth rate of a true god is determined by the priesthood he has and the believers he has. The more powerful the clergy, the wider the coverage. The more believers, the more power of faith to harvest. Transforming the power of belief into divine power, constantly purifying one's own body, purifying one's soul, and increasing one's divinity, so as to realize the leap from the lower god to the middle god, and the middle god to the upper god. From the gods, experience points are useless. The concept of 4-dimensional properties also disappears. But the disappearance of the 4-dimensional attributes from the attribute panel of a true god does not mean that the 4-dimensional attributes are useless. Quite the opposite. 4-dimensional attributes are the most important foundation laid by a god before being conferred a god. For example, Sarah Indu, conferred god in the form of 4-in-1. Even if the 4 parts merged together, he once again constituted his body, so that the 4-dimensional attributes of his body only reached the level of 800,000 points. But the body of God cast with 800,000 4-dimensional attributes, its potential and growth rate are several times that of the body of God forged with 700,000 4-dimensional attributes, many times or even dozens of times. Why? Because of the basics. Among the gods, there are also areas of expertise that they are good at, not omniscient and omnipotent. A god who is advanced as a warrior may have extremely powerful physical attack ability, and his magical attack ability may be only a little stronger than that of a demigod. A god who has become a wizard, his magical attack ability can destroy the world, and his physical attack ability may be just the level of ordinary demigods. The higher the 4-dimensional attributes before becoming a god, the stronger the body and soul after becoming a god. Just like they are also gods, some are made of mud, some are made of steel, and some are made of diamonds. No doubt, completed the ultimate consecration of the god Sarahin in a 4-in-1 way. That is the kind of diamond-carved divine drive. So, when the priesthood is strong enough and the power of belief is enough, the growth rate of Serindu will far exceed those of the true gods who are conferred gods with low 4-dimensional attributes. Even combat power. Saline is several times their size. The ultimate god. This is a concept put forward by the gods before the battle of the gods in ancient times began. But the concept was quickly abandoned because it was not operational. But no one thought of it. When hundreds of thousands of years have passed, Sarine has created the system of the undead. With the help of the dead, Wang Qian's spirit system, he divided himself into 4, and in this way completed the concept of the ultimate conferred god. The ultimate god. Without changing his form, Saline, whose average stat was only 800,000 points, certainly did not reach the true stat limit. But for all the demigods and even all the true gods in the game world, this is already a limit. But when he learned about the concept of the ultimate conferring god from the mouth of Sarah Indu, and also learned about the great influence of the extreme conferring god on the conferred god, Sumu fell into contemplation. For all other demigods and true gods, This way of consecrating the gods of Sarine is already the limit. Seemingly,
Tosumu.
is it not impossible to consecrate a god with 1,000,000 points of all attributes? Seemingly, in addition to improving the skill level, in addition to improving the world level, the free points can also be used as attribute points to directly improve his four-dimensional attributes. All along, Sumu has never used free points to improve his attribute value. On the one hand, it is because, in the early stages of the game, free points are extremely precious. The increase in combat power brought to him by increasing the attribute value with free points is obviously not comparable to the combat power brought by increasing the skill level. On the other hand, the erosion talent can improve his four-dimensional attributes by eroding the enemy's corpse. In this way, with the erosion again and again, along with the improvement of his professional template, his four-dimensional attributes have soared, and Sumu has completely let go of the idea of using free points to improve the four-dimensional attributes. Up to now, in addition to the four-dimensional attribute increase brought about by the level upgrade, Sumu has not even obtained other attribute increases for a long time. With an average of more than 500,000 four-dimensional attributes, Sumu far surpassed the demigods. That is, most of the true gods did not have the four-dimensional attributes like him before opening the ceremony of conferring the gods. This also leads to, even if he killed a demigod, eroded his corpse, and devoured the essence of his corpse, it would still be difficult for him to grow in four-dimensional attributes. B.A. The beings that are killed and corroded are gods. The existence of the ultimate god made Sumu see the necessity of free points to improve the four-dimensional attributes. According to Sarah Indu, just conferring a god with 800,000 four-dimensional attributes, his combat power and subsequent growth rate are already several times that of other lower gods. If 680 is conferred a god with a four-dimensional attribute of 900,000 points, the gap may reach 10 times or even dozens of times. Let a true god have a terrifying combat power comparable to that of a median god just after being conferred a god. And the real ultimate conferred god, that is, after the four-dimensional attributes have all reached 1,000,000 points, then conferring gods may be another kind of qualitative change. A qualitative change that is difficult to guess even by Sarah. In addition, the four-dimensional attributes are more difficult to improve later. In addition to the Fire of Wisdom, the other three parts of Sarah Indu are all from the eldest sun race, all of which are the races with the highest growth of a single attribute among the eldest sun races. Even so, it took him tens of thousands of years to raise the attribute represented by the three divisions to 900,000 points. You can't go any higher up. For this, Sumu has a guess. Even if you use free points to improve your four-dimensional attributes, I am afraid it will be more difficult to improve as you go forward. In other words, the more free points you need later, the more points you need. When your four-dimensional attribute reaches 900,000 points, you may need to increase the number of free points required for the four-dimensional attribute, which is a huge amount. Skill improvement requires a lot of free points. The promotion of the world requires a lot of free points. Nowadays, the improvement of four-dimensional attributes also requires a large number of free points.
Thus,
the next free points that Sumu needs, that is, the points of the power of faith, are even more hard to top. Not only does the Abyss world need to expand, but the plan to keep wise creatures in captivity as one's own followers must also be improved. The power of belief that those wise creatures in the Abyss world bring to them can't keep up with their own consumption at all. Sarah Indu's exit greatly eased the shortage of manpower in the Abyss world. Next, Sarine returned to the plane of death immediately and contacted his former subordinates through energy, bringing a large number of legendary rank and sanctuary-level powerhouses to the Abyss world. All of a sudden, the number of sanctuaries owned by the Abyss world has doubled. As the founder of the Dark Council, Sarine has the contact information of all the Dark Council presidents and members. A large part of the members of the sanctuary are directly under the command of the four divisions of Sarah Indu. This part of the subordinates, naturally, will settle into the Abyss with Sarah Indu and transform into an Abyss species. As for the other members of the Dark Council that are not directly living in the four divisions, Sarine did not force them to join the Abyss world, but continued to maintain the connection between them in the form of the Dark Council. Good way to get information on the dark side. The addition of these sanctuaries has increased the number of sanctuary powerhouses owned by the Abyss Camp, and it has also made the Abyss Camp's next plan unfold in an orderly manner. First, the followers of Serindu. After operating in secret for tens of thousands of years, the number of believers that Saline has in every world and every plane is no less than Sumu at this time. After successfully consecrating the gods and turning the second Abyss world into his own domain, Sarine immediately used the authority granted him by Sumu. Migrate to the second Abyss world. Although the second layer of the Abyss world is essentially the kingdom of Serindu. But after drawing an apth in the center of the second layer Abyss world as one's own earthly kingdom of gods, the other regions of this vast and boundless Abyss world are still enough for countless intelligent creatures to survive. By migrating one's own followers to the Abyss world under their jurisdiction, it avoids that when the gods wake up, they will attack their followers and cut off their source of belief. From this point of view, entering the Abyss and integrating into the Abyss directly solve the worries of Sarah Indu. The migration of believers is a long process. Given the number of believers that Saline has, the gods will not be able to complete the migration of all believers until the gods wake up a year later. But his energy won't be all on it. Actually, when other Abyss Lords have entered the state of retreat, and even Sumu himself needs to retreat to refine his divinity and improve his rank, Sarine has become the only person in charge of the Abyss world. During this year, the follow-up development of the entire Abyss world was also handed over to Serindu to execute. The migration of believers has already begun. Subsequently, with the help of his control over the Dark Council and the countless eyeliners he had planted before, Saline kept monitoring dozens of high-level worlds at the same time. The level of the Abyss world is temporarily not enough to swallow the main material world of high energy level, but it is enough to swallow the main material world of low energy level. Those low energy level main material worlds that have players descended and serve as server continents are naturally the primary targets for the Abyss world to swallow. Devouring such a world can not only increase the level of the Abyss world, but also expand the number of players in the Abyss camp, which can be described as killing two birds with one stone. After getting permission from Sumu to start a plane war, find such a world, devour such a world. It became the second task that Saline needed to perform next. Soon, only 10 days after Sumu retreated, that is, a month and a half after the end of the Dark Conferred God, Sarine found the first main material world where a descendant was suspected to have appeared. When a high-level undead under his command sneaked into that world to inquire about it, Sarah Indu also took advantage of the opportunity to obtain the low-level world corresponding to the high-level main material world, which is the spatial coordinates of the server continent. Subsequently, after consulting Sumu, Saline directly launched a plane war and started an invasion of the server continent where countless players exist. For points, hundreds of sanctuaries. Coupled with the fact that Selene's own true god-level strength, this kind of combat power is not only a low-level world or a high-level world, it is enough to sweep everything in an era when the gods have not awakened. Even the Light Plane, which is the base camp of the Holy Light Camp, can only resist but cannot attack, not to mention other main material worlds. Dark counterattack? This is the real dark comeback. Invade the world. Corrupt the world. Devour the world. It not only increased the level of the Abyss world, but also increased the number of players in the Abyss camp, and also wiped out the believers of the gods belonging to the Light camp in that world. 3 birds with one stone. Unconsciously, less than a year before the awakening of the gods, an unprecedented dark counterattack, a plane war that spread to dozens of worlds, also started with the Order of Serindu on the continent of Nord. A player who had just stepped into the legendary rank looked blankly at the quest prompt that appeared on his attribute panel. Just now, after 3 consecutive system prompts sounded in his mind, a task prompt appeared on his attribute panel. Normally, the tasks that the system issues actively, rather than the player's active activation, are all mainline tasks, which means a lot of experience points and rich rewards. However, when this quest appeared and the legendary player's eyes swept across the quest information, He would rather he did not receive this quest. He would rather not have this quest on the server continent where he was located. Because mythic plot mission, Abyss Invasion. This is a mythical main quest. Abyss. As a player, no one is unfamiliar with this term, because this represents the only monster camp in the entire game world. At the same time, until now, the more than 6 million players who join the Abyss camp are still the envy of players from countless other server continents. The identity of monsters, various cool occupations, plots that other players absolutely cannot touch, and the thrill of killing the quartet with the Abyss Lord. These are absolutely difficult for other players to experience. If it weren't for the fact that the last plane war caused the Anduin continent server to disappear directly from the players' server lists, I am afraid that countless players would have deleted their game accounts and chose to be reborn in Anduin continent to join the Abyss camp. Until now, there are countless players tirelessly wanting to join the Abyss camp, wanting to transform themselves into Abyss monsters. However, it doesn't include him. For more than 9 years, countless time and energy have been spent, starting from a small hunter apprentice, step by step to the legendary rank. This player has become the backbone of a small kingdom. In the entire small kingdom, he has the final say in almost everything. Even alone in reality, he married the princess of that small kingdom in the game world, became one of the orthodox heirs of that small kingdom, and lived a life completely unimaginable in the real world. Except not yet having children, he has lived what can be called a perfect life in this game world. Under such circumstances, how is he willing to join the Abyss camp? How willing to see the invasion of the Abyss world? And how willing to destroy his almost perfect life? This player is not an exception. As mentioned above, every player, as long as he wants to obtain the transfer information of the epic rank or even the legendary rank, must integrate himself into the game world and operate it as his second life. In this way, at the same time as their rank and status are raised, they are also truly integrated into this world. In this world, there are not a few people who marry, take apprentices, and shelter one side. Poor. I'm afraid there is only the last link of having a child. Of course, there are countless players who want to join the Abyss faction. But like this player, there are not a few players who just want to enjoy their current life in the game world. These players are naturally reluctant to see the Abyss world invade their world. Only, don't want to go back and forget. When Serendu's order was issued, the hundreds of sanctuaries stepped out of the Abyss world with tens of thousands of epics and legends, and launched an attack on several main material worlds at the same time. On average, there are at least 20 sanctuaries and thousands of epics and legends who invade these main material worlds. This power is difficult to resist even the high-level main material world, not to mention the low-level main material worlds that are regarded as player server continents. So, an Abyss invasion far beyond the player's imagination took place in those server continents. Nordland. When the quest prompt of Mythic Plot Quest, Abyss Invasion, sounded, the player was just stunned for a moment, and then frantically rushed towards his home, the royal city of that small kingdom. He didn't dare to fight against the Abyss, just from the mythical level quest level. It was enough to see that this Abyss invasion was definitely not something that a mere legend could resist. He was also unwilling that the invasion of the Abyss caused his home to be broken and his relatives to die tragically. So, the only solution he could think of was to bring his family with him as quickly as possible, rush to the boundary teleportation formation as quickly as possible, and take his family to a higher level world. Fortunately, his reaction time was fast enough. Fortunately, his wife and the old king also trusted him enough. It was only an hour after the mythic plot mission opened, the legendary player rushed to the realm teleportation array with his family, and successfully rode the boundary teleportation array to the high-energy world corresponding to Nord continent. Only, when the player took his family out of the realm teleportation formation, what appeared in front of him was a picture that he would never forget for eternity. In the sky, a thick black fog obscured the sky, shrouding the whole world in a dark shadow. Above the earth, countless ferocious monsters lined up in an array are galloping on the ground and gradually disappearing. Far away, a huge black gate stands on the ground, and countless ferocious monsters of various forms are constantly pouring out, seeming to fill the entire land. Near, an abyss demon riding a pig-shaped monster, wearing a black armor, holding a serrated long knife, and exuding a mid-level legendary atmosphere is rapidly attacking the realm teleportation array. Abyss. Turn out to be. Long before Nord continent, this high-energy world with the existence of a sanctuary has been invaded by the Abyss world, and he brought his family over and directly appeared in the lair of the Abyss monsters. The Abyss demons attacked. The player couldn't help clenching the weapon in his hand. Zero. Ask for flowers. He is lonely in the real world, and he really treats his family in the game world as his family. In the face of the Abyss demons, even if he is not its opponent, he will fight to the death. Fight for his family to escape back to the realm teleportation array and escape back to the Nord continent. What happened next broke the player's prediction again. Legend? When rushing to the front of the player several dozen meters, the Abyss camp players' eyes lit up, and some couldn't wait to shout, "Hi, fellow, do you intend to join our Abyss camp? Joining now, not only will you be able to directly enter our world without God's Guild, but also have training support in the first 3 months. Not an attack, but to recruit?" This huge contrast made the player unable to turn around for a while. After proposing the solicitation, the player from the Abyss camp also saw the fearful aboriginals hiding behind the legendary player, and his eyes lit up even more. Zero. It turns out that my brother is also a fellow man who married a wife in the game world. Also? Yeah. The player was a little proud and said, "I am not talented, and after 3 years of hard work, I finally won the heart of an elf beauty. My wife is a dark elf. Also get married in the game." When this topic came out, the player's vigilance suddenly became much less, while the player from the Abyss camp was still enthusiastic. "How about it, brother? Consider my suggestion? If you join now, I can also persuade our president. Let the president go to the messenger to ask for mercy, and let the messenger personally help you to transform your family into an Abyss demon." The Abyss camp. Have they all developed to this stage? This feeling. Why is it not like pulling people to join the Abyss camp at all, but a bit like a pyramid scheme? The player had a magical feeling. Subsequently, under the constant explanation of the Abyss camp player, he finally understood the difference between joining the Abyss camp by himself, accepting the baptism of the Abyss waste gas and Abyss breath, and letting those sanctuary-level messengers transform themselves. Simply put, it has no effect on him. But for his family, those aborigines in the game world, accepting baptism on their own is very likely to explode and die, but being transformed by the messenger himself can eliminate 90% of the risk. Brother, tell you secretly, don't think that the Abyss camp is all green-faced, fangs, and terrifying. For most women of the race, converting into an Abyss species will not reduce their appearance at all, but will increase their charm because of their great temperament. Does the succubus know? All the human females who have been transformed into Abyss species are moving closer to succubus. There is no rattling of swords. Not as tragic as expected. Under the temptation of this Abyss camp player, slowly, he was moved. Legendary players have joined the Abyss faction. And at the request of the president of the No God in the World Guild, the messenger, that is, the sanctuary under the command of Sarah Indu, personally took action and successfully transformed his family into the Abyss demon. In this way, everyone is happy. Subsequently, through his own network of connections, this legendary player brought in a group of top players who married and settled down in the game world like him. It was also under the personal action of the messenger that they and their families were transformed into Abyss species. This is not an exception, but a common practice. Now that the game has progressed, all players who have entered the epic and legendary ranks are already an important part of the high-end power of the main material world in the game world. You are welcome to say, even if there are only a few or a dozen legendary players in a server continent, when these legendary players join with the game guild and epic players, they can fully occupy 1/3 of the high-end force of the server continent. When seeing the terrifying power of the Abyss camp, when knowing the benefits of joining the Abyss camp, and when one by one forerunners tried their own way, those players who were originally hostile to the Abyss camp also began to join this camp. Not to mention the players who want to join the Abyss camp, originally 683, accounted for most of the number of players. In this way, when most of the players joined the Abyss camp, the number of players in the Abyss camp also began to soar. From the original more than 6 million, it quickly soared to more than 10 million, more than 15 million, and moved towards the number of 20 million is rapidly approaching. The addition of these players has not only brought about a surge in the number of players in the Abyss camp. Occupation. With the efforts of the Abyss Lords, especially Sarah Indu, the true dark god who created the entire undead system, the number of occupation templates owned by the Abyss camp has already exceeded 100. And most of them are career templates that point directly to the legend, which is enough for every player who joins the Abyss to choose the career they want to change. Skills. When refining divinity, the Abyss Lords did not forget to go out regularly and use the authority given to them by Su Mu to impart skills and harvest experience. With the support of Su Mu's multi-expanded skill library and the support of nearly 20 million players from the Abyss camp, the experience points harvested by these Abyss Lords have also exploded. Originally, they had to go out regularly and harvest experience points again and again. It would take several years to raise their level from level 90 to level 100. With the support of the experience points that skyrocketed several times, it only took 1 or 2 years. You can successfully raise your level to the full level of 100. Even when the number of players in the Abyss camp continues to grow, and the experience value that can be harvested also increases exponentially, it is necessary to push all these Abyss Lords to the full level of 100, and then train new Abyss Lords in large quantities. It's not a difficult thing for the Abyss camp. And after Sarine became the true god of darkness, the standard of the new Abyss Lord is a demigod. So is Su Mu. But even if he harvested more experience points, he did not take those experience points out of the skill transfer panel to improve his experience points, but firmly stuck his level at the level of 90. The true ultimate conferred god. This is Su Mu's goal. Even if there are free points and points, Su Mu wants to raise his 4-dimensional attributes to the limit state of 1 million points. It is not so easy. After thinking for a while, he came up with a solution. Control your level. Wait until you use free points to raise all your 4-dimensional attributes to 900,000 points, and then upgrade your level. With the help of the professional template and the attribute improvement brought by the last 10 levels, you can increase your 4-dimensional attributes to the limit of 1 million points in one fell swoop. Self-improvement requires a lot of free points. The last 100,000 points of 4-dimensional attribute improvement, the ratio of free points required may not be 1 to 1, several to 1, but maybe 10 to 1 or even 100 to 1. And the attribute improvement brought by the occupation template bonus. Borrowed are the rules of the game. Even if the energy needed to improve the last 100,000 points of 4-dimensional attributes is under the rules of the game, it is the entire game world who pays this energy, not him. In this way, without consuming too many free points, he can successfully increase his 4-dimensional attributes to the true limit value. The plane war is progressing smoothly. Under the premise that the light plane directly under the god of holy light, the god king, has begun to retreat and defend, and temporarily avoid the edge of the Abyss camp, the other god camps are naturally more reluctant to conflict with the Abyss camp. Shrunk. Defense. Wait for the gods to wake up. This is their best coping strategy. Under such circumstances, how can the main material worlds, even the high-energy main material worlds, be able to resist dozens of sanctuary commanders, tens of thousands of epics and legends, and even more the invasion of the Abyss army of millions of Abyss players? Almost. Whenever Sarine chooses a main material world, he starts a plane war. Dozens of sanctuaries from the Abyss will join hands to subdue or kill the sanctuary in the main material world, and then build the gate of the Abyss in the shortest time, allowing the endless army of the Abyss to capture this world. Let the endless abyss of magic erode this world. Destruction. Unmatched. On average, from Saline choosing a main material world as the target of the plane invasion, to the Abyss army and the Abyss Devil Chi completely eroding this main material world. Just over a month. In the case of multi-line warfare, every month, 4 or 5 main material worlds are eroded by the Abyss Army and the Abyss demonic energy and become the objects swallowed by the Abyss world. Sumu is in retreat. Just as those Abyss Lords would go out from time to time while retreating to refine their divinity, imparting skills and harvesting experience points, Sumu would also go out from time to time while retreating. The purpose of his exit: first, plunder the power of faith and the source of true gods contained in the statues enshrined in the temples in the main material worlds, in order to make up for the huge gap in free points, and by the way improve their four-dimensional attributes. Second, just like the Anduin continent at the beginning, go directly to the land of the main material world and migrate all the creatures living in it to the Abyss world, increasing the number of intelligent creatures in the Abyss world. Also increases the source of his faith power. The third is to control the Abyss world to devour the main material worlds, completely destroying and swallowing them, so as to improve the world level of the Abyss world. At this point, for the time being, it can only be done by Sumu. Even Sera Indu, the true dark god of darkness who was endowed with extremely high authority by Sumu, his authority over the source of the Abyss world, the power of erosion, is only to use, not to control Zero. At least, until Sumu figured out a way to allow the Pit Lords to control the power of erosion. This world's devouring of the world could only be done by Sumu himself. 3 months. Sera has launched a total of more than a dozen plane wars, completely occupying more than a dozen main material worlds, and has become an object that can be swallowed by the Abyss world at any time. After exhausting all the land in the dozen or so main material worlds, the number of intelligent creatures transformed in the Abyss world suddenly increased tenfold. Only, the level of the Abyss world has not soared. Because every time a world is swallowed, the Abyss world needs a certain amount of time to completely digest the world and restabilize its own world origin, world crystal wall, and the laws and rules within the world. Devouring a main material world in a month is already the limit of the Abyss world. Unless the level of the Abyss world is high enough and stable enough, and the world it swallows is far lower than its own world level, this kind of world swallowing the world can continue uninterrupted. But, even so, after swallowing 3 low-level main material worlds in 3 months, the level of the Abyss world has also been smoothly upgraded from a small world, level 5, to a medium-sized world, level 1. At this time, the Abyss world can already begin to devour high-energy worlds like Unreal Continent. The medium-sized world corresponds to the high-level plane. From the perspective of the Dimension Demon God, the Abyss world has grown into a medium-sized world, which means that his Demon God level has broken through from the lower God to the middle God level. In 3 months, a breakthrough in the realm was completed. And it is already a fantasy to break through with the identity of the dimensional demon god that takes the longest time and grows the slowest. Even if it is given tens of thousands of years to other dimension demon gods, they may not be able to achieve such growth and breakthrough. The plane war is still going on. Even if the eroded worlds cannot be swallowed up temporarily, just looting the creatures in those worlds and plundering the idols in those worlds can make the power of the Abyss world and Sumu skyrocket again and again. Say it again. Destroying these worlds, 5.5 plunders the power of belief, the source of true gods and intelligent beings, and indirectly weakens the strength of the many true gods in the light camp. No need to stop. When the plane war lasted for the 4th month and the number of main material worlds under the Abyss camp reached nearly 20, all of them became dead worlds without any living beings. Sumu suspended retreat. Not because his stat boost has ended. It's not because he has completely refined the 100 points of divinity in the demigod realm. Instead, in the past 3 months, Olivia has completely refined 100 points of divinity, reaching the level of a perfect demigod. Moreover, she has a deep enough understanding of the 3 priesthoods of Doom, Greed, and Raven. That is, Olivia, the Crow of Death, has reached the conditions for opening the ceremony of conferring gods and being promoted to the true god. Even if Sumu already has a terrifying combat power comparable to that of the median god both inside and outside the Abyss world. Even if his subordinates also have Serindu, the true dark god of darkness, Olivia, the true god of darkness, for the Abyss world extremely important meaning. Olivia became a perfect demigod. The consecration ceremony is about to begin. He, of course, has to protect him all the way. Original. Sumu intends to make Olivia confer to God in the Abyss world, so as to avoid the sniping from the Bright Camp, so that she can successfully complete her god conferring ceremony. But with the various accidents born in the dark conferring gods, he no longer needs to hide in the Abyss world to let Olivia complete the god conferring ceremony. Sumu, the strength displayed in the battle of the conferred gods in Sera Indu, is already a terrifying combat power at the level of the median god. Coupled with the successful consecration of the gods, Sarine also has the strength comparable to the peak of the lower gods. Now, when the gods have not awakened, the Abyss Camp is the most powerful force in the entire game world. In this case, it is a better choice for Olivia to complete the ceremony of consecration in the plane of death than to complete the ceremony in the Abyss world. After all, the plane of death is a higher plane on the same level as the plane of light. Even if this world has long been broken, the laws and rules related to darkness are far more perfect than those in the Abyss world. The existence of these laws and rules also allows Olivia to condense her own godhead faster and more easily and complete the ceremony of conferring gods. So, in the end, the land of gods chosen by Olivia is still the plane of death. Next, it's easy. Before holding the ceremony of conferring the gods, the first preparation to be done is to build one's own kingdom of gods. In this regard, there is the support of Sumu, the Abyss demon god, and Sarine, the dark true god, as well as the hundreds of holy places and numerous legends and epics from the Abyss camp. When countless precious materials were gathered, Olivia's kingdom of God was built in just half a month. Subsequently, 01 Olivia appeared on the plane of death, ready to start the ceremony of conferring gods. Sumu and Sarine are the two top combat powers, also appeared on the plane of death at this time, escorting Olivia. Compared with the time when Sera was conferred a god, Olivia's consecration ceremony was shabby. There are neither the tens of thousands of legends and epics that constantly pray for him, providing the power of faith, nor the demigods from the Dark Council watching the battle, nor the countless enemies appearing to snipe them. Consecration ceremony. The only witnesses are Sumu and Serendu. Subsequently, when everything was ready, Olivia directly started the ceremony of conferring the gods. Announce real name. Declare the origin. Declare the priesthood. Proclaim believers. When this process is over, it is still shocking. Olivia's consecration ceremony also caused a shock to the laws and rules of each world and plane, and her land of conferring gods, along with the shaking of the laws and rules, was exposed to many and a half. In the sight of God only, no one dared to snipe. To be precise, several angel demigods from the Bright Camp paid attention to Olivia's consecration ceremony. However, when they discovered that the consummate demigod who opened the ceremony of conferring the gods was Olivia, the land of conferring gods was the plane of death, and Sumu and Sarine were both guarded by the plane of death. They disconnected this peeping in the first place. Joke. When the gods have not awakened, who can provoke these two existences? The Abyss camp didn't take advantage of the fact that the gods had not yet awakened to hit the light plane. Who would dare to take the initiative to attack Olivia's ceremony of conferring the gods and provoke these two existences of the Abyss camp? So, everything went extremely well. Declare the name of God. Transform divine power. Light the fire. Gather the Godhead. In this dead plane that has become dead, Olivia passed the first few cloths of the consecration ceremony without any disturbance and began to use the three priesthoods of bad luck, greed, and raven as the foundation to condense one's own godhead. Three priesthoods. Among them, the potential of the doom priesthood is probably the median god, and the potential of the raven priesthood is only the lower gods. But, as one of the 7 deadly sins, the emotion represented by the priesthood of greed is one of the first 7 sins of all living beings. Sumu estimates that even if the greed priesthood is not enough to support Olivia's climb to the realm of the God King level, the difference is not very big. Combining the 3 priesthoods, Even if Olivia's final form does not reach the level of a God King, she should be not far behind a God King in terms of combat power, barely worthy of the title of Greedy Devil. Based on the three major priesthoods, the Godhead is condensed. Without an artifact like the Codex of the Dead to help her cheat, Olivia could only condense a little by herself. But her faith is strong enough, and she doesn't need to worry about the enemies sniping. All she needs is time. A little bit. A trace. Olivia didn't have the slightest impatience in her heart. She condensed her Godhead little by little, and climbed to the level of a true God little by little. Olivia was not impatient, and neither was Sumu. When the future Greedy Devil condensed his Godhead, Sumu also opened his attribute panel to check his current state and attributes. Level 90. He is still suppressing his level. Attributes, 800,000 points. Relying on the power of faith contributed by the countless intelligent beings in the Abyss world, coupled with the power of faith that Sumu plundered from the statues in the temples when the plane was eroded, he was worthy of raising his four-dimensional attributes to 800,000 points at this level. Has caught up with Serindu. But one thing Sumu guessed wrong. The use of free points to improve the four-dimensional attribute does not begin to transform when his four-dimensional attribute reaches 900,000 points, but it starts to change from 600,000 points. Before 600,000 points, the ratio of free points and attribute points is 1:1. 600,000 to 700,000 points, the ratio of free points and attribute points has become 2:1. 700,000 to 800,000 points, the ratio of free points and attribute points has become 5:1. 800,000 to 900,000 points, the ratio of free points and attribute points has become 10:1. That is to say, raise his four-dimensional attributes from more than 500,000 points to the current level of 800,000 points. Sumu has invested more than 3 million free points in his four-dimensional attributes. If the number of intelligent creatures in the Abyss world is not enough, if it weren't for the Plane Wars, Sumu had also plundered enough of the power of belief that originally belonged to those gods from the gods in the temple, and I'm afraid he wouldn't be enough to improve his four-dimensional attributes. Even so, if you want to increase your four-dimensional attributes from 800,000 points to 900,000 points, you still need a full 4 million free points. The last 100,000 points are the last qualitative change. 100 times the conversion ratio is by no means an illusion. Fortunately, for the last 100,000 free points, he plans to rely on the attribute bonus brought by the level increase to make up for it. Otherwise, it's just the number of free points required for the last 100,000 points of four-dimensional attribute improvement, just enough to make Sumu head big. Of course, with the improvement of four-dimensional attributes, Sumu's body combat power is also soaring. At this time, Sumu, without considering the mythical skill of the Endless Bone War God, his body combat power is no less than that of the original mountain giants and dark titans. Destroying the existence of the consummate demigod, it's as simple as drinking water. If he enters the form of the skeleton god of war again, his combat power at this time has reached the peak of the middle god. It is infinitely close to the level of the upper god. This crossing, this qualitative change, lets Sumu once again firm up the idea of the ultimate gods. With enough self-preservation, even if the gods will wake up after 6 months, he will continue to suppress his level and give priority to improving his four-dimensional attributes. Instead of rushing to raise one's rank, rushing to confer a god. In addition, during this time, Sumu also upgraded a series of his main battle skills to the subdivine level, which was regarded as enhancing his combat power from the other side. It may take tens of thousands of free points to upgrade a skill from an original skill to a demigod skill. A series of skill upgrades have been completed, consuming hundreds of thousands of free points. But, compared with the improvement of four-dimensional attributes, the number of free points required to improve skills is only a fraction. Perhaps, the only downside to Sumu's ultimate conferring gods is that it makes his realm stuck. With 10 points of divinity, the level can be raised to level 91. With 20 points of divinity, the level can be raised to level 92. And so on. Although suppressing his own level does not prevent Su-mu from refining his divinity, but only refining his divinity does not increase his level, his realm will not be improved with the divinity. That is to say, even if 683 Su-mu refines 100 points of divinity and completely integrates these 100 points of divinity into his body and becomes a part of his body, as long as his level has not reached the full level of 100, these 100 points of divinity will be difficult to be real. The formation of divine armor. His rank will always be stuck at the level of a lower demigod. Under his own seat, he made great progress when Olivia was conferred a god, and when Agnes and others had stepped into the middle demigod and sprinted towards the upper demigod and the perfect demigod. His own master has always stayed in the realm of a lower demigod, which caused him to have a subtle psychological gap. Of course, he will not change his decision because of this subtle psychological gap. What he cares about is the future. As long as he obtains enough free points, as long as his four-dimensional attributes are all raised to 900,000 points, he can use the massive amount of experience stored in the skill transfer panel to improve his level at any time, allowing him to instantly enter the realm of a perfect demigod. Catch up with Agnes and others. But such a consummation demigod and an ordinary consummation demigod are two completely different concepts. 3 hours. While Su-mu was sorting out her own attributes and status, Olivia has also been condensing her divine personality. After waiting for 3 hours, the former fifth speaker, the future greedy demon king, finally fully condensed his godhead. Gather godhead. Raise the kingdom of God. Climb to the throne. With the experience of Sarah Indu, there were no accidents in the remaining 2 steps. When Olivia took her god into the sky and escaped from the plane of death, Su-mu had already returned to the abyss world and opened a huge space gap near the plane of death. Subsequently, return to the abyss with your own kingdom of God. When Olivia's kingdom of God is also eroded by the origin of the abyss world, when the 3 origin powers of doom, greed, and raven appear in the bottom abyss. Above the second abyss, a new abyss world was born. The third abyss world, 3 layers of abyss world. The bottommost abyss world is the foundation of all abyss worlds and the core of all abyss worlds. Here is the base camp of Su-mu. In order to distinguish the bottom abyss world from other abyss worlds, Su-mu named the bottom abyss world Magic Abyss. Above the demon abyss is the second abyss world where Sarah Indu is located. This layer of abyss world was named Dark Abyss by Saline. Above the Dark Abyss is the third abyss world that was just born after Olivia integrated her own god. This layer of abyss was named Abyss of Greed by Olivia. As far as I can tell, the order of the abyss world is determined according to the consecration time of the true gods in the abyss world. In the future, this will naturally not be the case. Since it is an endless abyss, it must be sorted according to the rules of the abyss. The stronger the abyss world, the closer to the magic abyss, the lower the serial number. The weaker the abyss world, the farther away from the magic abyss, the higher the serial number. In this way, when the number of worlds owned by the endless abyss is large enough, there is no need for Su-mu to do anything, and those abyss lords will compete with each other for the ranking of the abyss world and strive to improve the strength of themselves and the abyss world they own. Olivia's consecration ceremony ended. The second true god of the abyss world was born. Immediately afterwards, Olivia entered a closed state. Just like when Saline was consecrated as a god, Olivia also needed to retreat for a period of time to stabilize her state and her kingdom of God. Until the closing is over, she also needs to move her subordinates and her followers to the abyss of greed. Otherwise, it is a joke that he is clearly a true god and has the strength to protect his subordinates and believers, but let his subordinates and believers be destroyed by other forces for one reason or another. Following Olivia's retreat, Su-mu also entered a state of retreat again, refining her divinity. Sarendu continued to start the plane war. 6 months. At this time, there are still 6 months before the gods wake up. During these 6 months, Su-mu must obtain enough free points to improve his four-dimensional attributes. At the same time, we must launch as many plane wars as possible to plunder the intelligent creatures in the main material world. After all, When the gods wake up, when the main material worlds return to the control of the gods, it is not so easy to launch a plain war and plunder the creatures of the main material world as easily as now. Simple. Wisdom creatures are not only the belief reserve of Su-Mu and the Abyss Camp, but also the foundation of the existence of many gods. In order to compete for these intelligent beings, the gods would never mind starting a war of gods. At the same time, it is also necessary to improve the level of the Abyss world as much as possible. If the level of the Abyss world is high enough, if Su-Mu has the strength to fight against the God King, let alone the spatial coordinates of the Abyss world will not be easily exposed, even if it is exposed. He no longer has to worry about threats from the gods. The plain war continues. When the level of the Abyss world is raised from the small world, level 5, to the medium world, level 1, the high-level world can already be used as the target of devouring. Nature. The world of Anreal, which Su-Mu had already chosen, became the first target to be swallowed by the Abyss world. The same is a 1-month cooling-off period, recovery period. The growth brought by swallowing a high-level main material world to the Abyss world is obviously not comparable to swallowing a low-level main material world. At this rate, when the 6 months are over, when the gods awake, the Abyss world, at least, has grown into a large world. The high-energy main material world has become the main body swallowed by the Abyss world. At the same time, during this process, Sarai never gave up his invasion of the low-energy main material world. The world does not need to be swallowed, and the creatures in these low-energy level main material worlds still have to be searched. In addition, players are one of the most important resources that the Abyss world needs to reserve. Even if it is just to increase the number of players in the Abyss camp, the invasion of the low-level main material world cannot be stopped. It is worth mentioning that, while Sarendu launched the plain war again and again, and turned the main material world into a dead world with only the world itself and no living beings, players also concluded some rules. Did not fix the realm teleportation array. In other words, a server continent that does not have a legendary player teleported to the high-energy world through the boundary teleportation array will never be invaded by the Abyss. All server continents invaded by the Abyss have a common feature. That is, the boundary teleportation array has been repaired, and some players have been teleported to the corresponding high-level world through the boundary teleportation array, and the coordinates of the server continent where they were born are exposed, which may lead to the invasion of the Abyss world. Player. When more and more players joined the Abyss camp and became part of the Abyss world, the advantages of the Abyss camp were also known by more and more players. There are also more and more players who want to join the Abyss camp. Especially when many players in Nord continent appeared and said that the process of transforming themselves and their family members in the game world into an Abyss species was completely published on the game forum. Those players who were bound by their family members no longer had any reluctance to join the Abyss camp. Nature. There are still a large number of players who do not want to join the Abyss camp and do not want to see the Abyss world invade the server continent where they were born. These players may be greedy for the power they have acquired. Perhaps they do not like the gloomy style of the Abyss world, or they may simply regard the server continent where they were born as their homeland. But, compared with other players, the number of players in this part is still a minority. So, after knowing the prerequisites for the Abyss invasion, many players on the server continent began to actively search for the boundary teleportation array, repair the boundary transmission array, and actively reveal the coordinates of the server continent where they are located. In order to let the Abyss world invade and achieve the purpose of joining the Abyss camp, the number of these players is not in the minority. And this kind of spontaneous behavior is a great convenience for Saline to look for those low-level worlds where players have come. Constantly incorporate players from server continents into the Abyss camp. 6 months. For a god or demigod, this is a very brief period of time. Even for a sanctuary, a legend, or even an epic, this period of time is not very long. Maybe not enough for them to complete an experiment or to complete a large mission. However, in the last 6 months, under the coordination of Sarah Indu, and with the efforts of the many races and players of the Abyss camp, the worlds were invaded one by one. Worlds are being devoured. The entire Abyss camp is growing at a speed that no one can imagine. Sumu is growing. Constantly improve one's four-dimensional attributes with free points, so that his four-dimensional attributes are approaching the 900,000 mark. He is also constantly refining his divinity, so that his own divinity is approaching 100 points. The Pit Lord is growing. Agnes, Corolla, Nefarian, Rhoda Monroe, and Augustine, with the support of enough experience and divinity, are also crossing other demigods at a rapid speed, which takes tens of thousands of years to achieve. The steps that crossed, from the lower demigod to the middle demigod to the upper demigod, and the impact from the upper demigod to the perfect demigod. Abyss players are growing. Starting from the initial more than 6 million players of the Abyss camp, as the main material worlds are eroded and swallowed by Serindu, the number of players in the Abyss camp is also increasing. 6 million, 10 million, 20 million, 50 million. Not just quantity. Players of these Abyss camps have also gained a lot of experience points and other rewards in these plane invasions and world-level main quests. The number of advanced legendary Abyss faction players is increasing rapidly. The Abyss world is growing. Devour the world once a month. 6 months is enough for Sumu to control the Abyss world to devour 6 high-level main material worlds. In this devouring, the number of intelligent creatures in the Abyss world exploded exponentially, enough to provide a lot of faith for the true gods and demigods of all Abyss camps. Even the level of the Abyss world. All are medium-sized world, level 1, and quickly upgrade to medium-sized world, level 4, medium-sized world, level 7, and medium-sized world, level 9, and eventually grow into a large world. This speed, this development, just 6 months. The overall strength of the Abyss world has increased tenfold. Emperor Roland Continent. Temple of the God of Justice. An old priest with epic power followed by a small figure, looking sadly at the tall black figures rushing into the temple, including all the items that can gather the power of faith, including the statue of the God of Justice. All destroyed. He dared not resist. Because all the rebellious sacrifices in the temple, whether they were sacred or legendary, had already fallen to the ground under the attack of these black figures, dyeing the sacred hall red with their own blood. He dared not look up. He was afraid that those monsters from the Abyss would see the anger in his eyes, the sadness in his eyes, and the hope in his eyes. He was also afraid that he would anger these monsters. Not only was he killed by these monsters, but even the child in his arms would be implicated because of his anger. Do not resist. This is how to survive. This has almost become a truth. When the Abyss invades, as long as the strength is not enough to threaten the army of the Abyss, as long as there is no resistance, these ferocious and brutal Abyss monsters will not hurt any living being. Although strange, this is indeed the truth of surviving in such a plain war. Because of knowing this, when the legendary monsters in the Abyss broke into this temple under the leadership of 2 natural disaster messengers who had reached the sanctuary level, they could survive. Head down. Silence. Turn a blind eye. When the shrine was calm again, the old priest quietly raised his head, and sure enough, those Abyss monsters had already left. Only, there is no more evidence of their faith in the God of Justice in this temple. Grandpa, is that the monster in the Abyss? I don't know when. The little figure hiding in the arms of the old sacrificial priest also quietly raised his head and looked at the black figures that were gradually disappearing. Yeah, that's the Abyss monster. It is the most ferocious and cruel existence in this world. The old priest replied with lingering fears. Can we beat them? One by one heroes, one by one sacrifice, these incomparably powerful beings in the heart of the little figure. The scene of being destroyed and killed by those monsters from the Abyss has been deeply reflected in the little figure's heart. Yes, of course. Under the brilliance of our Lord's God of Justice, we shall surely triumph. The old priest paused slightly and said, But when the uncles and uncles were fighting the monsters, the God of Justice did not appear, nor did he perform miracles. If there is a God of Justice, why don't you help us drive away those monsters? The immature voice of the little figure came, but Abth made the old priest tremble. Yes. According to the divine revelation, according to the records handed down in the temple, the gods should have awakened. But why until the abyss invaded? Why until those terrifying monsters from the abyss destroyed all the temples and invaded the whole world? The gods they believed in still did not wake up. They still can't communicate with the gods they believe in? Abyssal invasion. The world is sinking. Even if those monsters from the abyss appeared in front of him, even if the temple that he had dedicated his whole life to was destroyed, even if the whole world was occupied by these abyss monsters, the old priest still never gave up his belief. Only, God of justice, when will he return? Not just old priests. In the temples, countries, races, and even worlds, countless people are experiencing this, and countless people are thinking about it. Divine revelation. Canon. In the inheritance left by these gods, it is clear that the gods will end their long slumber this year, wake up from the long sleep, and once again spread the glory of the gods to the world. Pity. Until the abyss invaded and the world ended, they still could not wait for the gods to wake up. Original. Before the gods return, there is divine revelation. For example, when the gods are about to wake up, the angels of the light plane will come down in various ways and notify the holy light temples in the main material world in the way of divine revelation that the God of holy light is about to wake up, and then conveyed to the believers of the God of light by the sacrifices in the temple. Forget about the low-energy world. At least, in those high-energy worlds, the temples can allow angels to descend and spread the news that the gods are about to wake up. Pity. Sumu appeared. Not only Sumu appeared, but there are two more dark gods in the abyss camp. When the gods are about to wake up, facing the threat of the three dark true gods in the abyss camp, spreading the divine revelation is no longer the primary task of each high-level plane. Preventing the invasion of the abyss camp, guarding their planes, and welcoming the awakening of the gods are their primary tasks. So, in this case, many main material worlds have not received divine revelation from higher planes. They can only infer from the divine revelation in the past and the ancient records in the temple that this year is the time for the gods to wake up. But I don't know when the gods will really wake up. And what about the abyss camp? With the help of the time when the gods have not awakened, the crazy expansion of strength, crazy invasion of the world, crazy destruction of the temples and statues, weakening the beliefs of the gods. Darkest hour. This is what countless people call this period of time in the worlds invaded by the abyss. Because it was not until later that they knew that this moment was so close to the time when the gods woke up. If they persist for a few more days, they will be able to wait until the gods wake up, and they will be able to bathe in the glory of the legendary gods. Count down to half a month. Sumu has no longer appeared in the main material worlds in the form of energy incarnation, plundering the power of faith in the temples and statues, but devoted himself to the refining of divinity. Instead, it is the army from the abyss who destroyed all the temples and statues, so that even if the gods woke up from a deep sleep, they would not have enough faith to supplement their divine power. Of course, in those worlds that were invaded, Sumu didn't have time to migrate those many creatures into the abyss world and transform them into abyss species. Fortunately, just the last half month. In the previous time, the development of the abyss world was large enough. Compared to the world where Sarine, the intelligent creatures who have migrated to the abyss world and have been transformed into abyss species, have occupied in the last half month, the number of those creatures is only a drop in the bucket. Count down to half a month. Sumu refines his divinity with all his strength, intending to step into the realm of perfect demigods before the gods wake up. The abyss lords under his command went out one by one and began to stabilize their state, adapt to their body and strength, and prepare for the next war. They don't know what will happen when the gods wake up. They don't even know that after the gods wake up, the first thing they do is not to attack the abyss camp, but to tear open the barrier between the game world and the real world together, so that the game world and the real world are connected, and the gods will come to reality and destroy reality. They just know. My lord once said that the moment the gods wake up is the moment when a new round of the battle of the gods begins, the moment when the world of great competition that can bring countless crises and countless opportunities opens. Them. Just be ready to go to war anytime. Countdown to the 5th day. Sarine has ended the invasion of the main material world and recalled all the Abyss army and players of the Abyss camp. In the days of countless creatures in the main material worlds, they returned to the Abyss world. All that was left were the devastated worlds corroded by the Abyss demonic energy and the Abyss aura. Countdown to the 4th day. Sarah Indu and Olivia also began to adjust their status and rectified the Dark Legion and Greed Legion under their command. Countdown to the 3rd day. The Abyss world is calm, so calm that the players of the Abyss camp find it difficult to adapt. Countdown to the 2nd day. Sumu returns. Abyss Hall. On the throne. Sumu sighed softly. In the end, he still failed to enter the realm of a complete demigod. At this time, he has already refined 98 points of divine nature, and he is only short of the last 2 points to refine all 100 points of divine nature, and achieves one of the 2 conditions for the advanced perfect demigod. Pity. It was these 2 points of divinity that made him stuck outside the consummation demigod. He has no time to continue refining. It's just the last day before the gods wake up. The time when the gods woke up was not the same as the time when the player came, but from a countdown, but from the memory of Sumu's previous life. In the past, those sleeping gods will wake up tomorrow, and the first time they wake up, they will tear open the barrier between the game world and the real world. Let the game world and the real world connect. Let the gods come to reality and destroy reality. That day, that scene, even after a lifetime of Sumu, it will never be forgotten. Divinity. Just the last 2 points. After regretting it, he didn't care much. After the big event of the gods coming to reality, he can take a random period of time, and he will complete the refining of the last 2 points of divinity, allowing himself to achieve the condition of becoming a demigod. On the contrary, it is a 4-dimensional attribute. Strength, 900,000 points. Agility, 900,000 points. Spirit, 900,000 points. That's right. A full 6 months. He has invested millions of free points in his 4-dimensional attributes. Mu finally raised all his 4-dimensional attributes to 900,000 points just before the gods awakened. 900,000 points. Even Sarah Indu, the prince from the eldest son race, has used the 4-in-1 method to polish it for tens of thousands of years, but he has only raised the single attribute of his 4 divisions to 900,000 points. When the 4 major divisions are merged and the main body reappears, his 4-dimensional attributes will still stay at the level of 800,000 points. Even so, Sarah Indu's growth rate has also far surpassed other gods, and has become one of the most likely to be promoted to the realm of God King in the entire game world. And what about Sumu? Before reaching the limit, his 4-dimensional attributes have been raised to 900,000 points. Yes, the 4-dimensional attribute of 800,000 points is the attribute limit of Sarah Indu's ontology. The 4-dimensional property of 900,000 points is the single occupancy limit of the Sarendu split. And the 4-dimensional properties of 900,000 points are far from the limit of Sumu. Quietly, Sumu opened his own properties panel. At this time, on his attribute panel, the exposure that would shock all the gods was above the 900,000 point 4-dimensional attribute, and his level was still level 90. This is the level he deliberately suppressed. And this time, on his skill teaching panel, the experience points harvested through the skills taught by many Abyss Lords have already accumulated to an astronomical figure. Looking at his level, looking at the experience points stored on the skill transfer panel, even the current Sumu is excited. Take a deep breath. He chose to extract the astronomical amount of experience stored on the skill transfer panel. Next moment, countless experience points emerge. There was almost no time for a second, and those massive experience points filled his empty experience bar. Level 91. With the increase of the level, the bonus of the 4-dimensional attributes brought by the professional template also acts on Sumu. An endless torrent of energy emerged from the void and poured into his body. With the help of the power from the rules of the game, he quickly strengthens his body and enhances his 4-dimensional attributes. 910,000 points. After a few minutes, the strengthening is over. Sumu's four-dimensional attribute has also been officially raised to 910,000 points, surpassing the 900,000 points that is difficult to cross. This, just the beginning. Experience points continue to pour in. The moment he completed the upgrade, the experience bar he had just vacated was filled with massive experience points again. Immediately afterwards, Sumu's level was raised to level 92, and his body and four-dimensional attributes were also enhanced again by the continuous torrent of energy. 920,000 points. Continue. Level 93. Attribute 930,000 points. Level 94. Attribute 940,000 points. Level 95. Attribute 950,000 points. Just over half an hour. When the experience value stored in the skill transfer panel is only a negligible part, Sumu's level has been raised to the full level of 100, and his four-dimensional attributes. With the support and reinforcement of the endless energy from the rules of the game, it finally reached 1 million points. Plan pass. 1 million points. This is the upper limit. It is the true limit of four-dimensional properties. When the level promotion is over and the growth of the four-dimensional attributes is also over, at the cost of 6 months of level suppression, and at the cost of those millions of free points, Sumu has finally reached the true limit of the four-dimensional attributes. At this time, sit on your own throne. Sumu was quietly feeling his body. He feels. It seems that you can tear apart the space, tear open the crystal wall of the world, and easily destroy a vast and boundless main material world. Do not feeling. With all four-dimensional attributes reaching the limit of 1 million points, he really has such terrifying power. At the same time, a lot of information came out of my mind. Sumu also has a little understanding of his current state. Just like many words in the real world, all roads lead to Rome. 3,000 roads, all can be sanctified. The same is true of the road to becoming a god in the game world. Dimensional demon gods and belief in true gods are two well-known paths to becoming gods. Believing in the true God, imitating the power of the ancient gods. Use divine power to condense the Godhead. Use the Godhead to control the priesthood, and use the priesthood to influence the law. The final result is the ancient god's control over his corresponding authority and power. The difference is, the ancient gods directly controlled the authority and power they possessed, while the belief in the true gods influenced the corresponding laws and rules through their own priesthood. The two are not of the same magnitude. Dimension demon god, imitating the world of ancient gods. The original world, the original world. This is what the gods in the game world call the world where the ancient gods were born. The ancient gods are one with the original world. If the ancient gods represented energy and authority, the primordial world represented matter and rules. Create the world, develop the world, grow the world, control the world. The road to becoming a god that the dimension demon god took is another manifestation of the power of the ancient gods. Strictly speaking, the addition of all dimensions of demon gods and all belief in true gods in the entire game world is a process in which the creatures born later gradually evolve and move closer to the ancient gods. These are the two clearest and easiest paths to godhood. But they are not the only two paths to becoming gods. Such as Sumu. Four-dimensional attributes reach the limit value of 1 million points, or in other words, a single attribute reaches the limit value of 1 million points, which is another way to become a god. 0. Ask for flowers. If you use the words of the real world, in the words of the many works of fiction, this way of becoming a god is called proving the way with strength. Strength, not just power. Strength, speed, physique, and spirit. These four attributes respectively represent a development direction. The limit value of any attribute reaching 1 million points represents the realization of the path to becoming a god with strength. Proving the Tao with strength is not the conventional way to become a god. The growth experience of Sarah Indu alone is enough to see the difficulty of this road to becoming a god. The best origin, the strongest wisdom, most knowledge, the most tolerant lurking. When many factors came together, Saline completed his consecration ceremony with 800,000 four-dimensional attributes. and this is already an unrepeatable miracle in the game world. Except for Sarah Indu, other gods and demigods have difficulty reaching 1 million points, even with 800,000 four-dimensional attributes. How can they prove the way? Even Sumu. If it weren't for the powerful plugin of erosion talent and free points, it is also impossible for him to reach the limit value where all four-dimensional attributes are 1 million points. Faith in the true God is powerful and depends on the priesthood. The power of the Dimension Demon God relies on the world. Both have advantages and disadvantages. To testify with strength. Difficulty means strength. This path to becoming a god is entirely up to you. It does not need to rely on the priesthood, does not need to rely on the world, and does not have the defects of faith disappears and will fall, nor does it have the defects of the world is strong and weak, the world is destroyed and the body is destroyed. Its only flaw is that it is impossible to achieve. This is a perfect way to become a god, and it is also an impossible way to become a god. Believing in the true God is the easiest way to become a god. Its difficulty lies in the sniping from outside when the ceremony of conferring the gods is held, and the competition for the believer's belief and power after the achievement of the true God. But, as long as you find a good master before conferring gods, these can be avoided. Dimension Demon God is already quite difficult. The tens of thousands of years of plain development time and the huge amount of resources required are the first hurdle to restrict a demigod from embarking on the road of a dimensional demon. After the achievement of the Dimension Demon God, the world development time of tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of years, and the weakness of the body's combat power, let every Dimension Demon God know how to walk this road, but it is difficult to reach the end. Prove with force. It is directly impossible to achieve. At least one attribute reaches the limit value of 1 million points, which is the basis of this road to conferring gods on the flesh. This foundation alone cuts off all attempts by all living beings to go to this path of consecration, because it can't be done. Besides, this path to becoming a god did not originally exist. It was Sumu who appeared, and after Sumu reached the limit of four-dimensional attributes, an achievement that could never have been achieved, this road to becoming a god appeared. Now, he reached. The meaning of the ultimate conferred god is not the growth rate and future potential after conferred god. Whether it is Serendu, or those deities who have long since come up with this concept in ancient times, they do not know the true meaning of the ultimate conferring god. Create a perfect road to becoming a god. This is the true meaning of the ultimate conferred god. $. Sumu now.
Thank you for watching Mystic Realms Recap. Please like, share, and subscribe. Have a great day.